way throughout his career. Lucky are those who weren't on the end of some of that legendary Ferguson wrath. And just when you suspected the old dog had run out of new tricks, he replied with back-to-back titles in 2007, 8 and 9, and for good measure lifted the European Cup for a second time. As United's Manchester neighbours turned up the volume in recent seasons, Sir Alex took it personally. He coached another Premier League title out of his team in 2011, a really special one, number 19. Then when City audaciously pinched it back from them, you simply knew he wouldn't take it lying down.
And the news is coming through that Manchester United have lost it.
In bad for Manchester United, I congratulate Manchester City winning the league. But they know I'm not going to be.
49 trophies as a manager, 38 of them with Manchester United, spanning 5 decades. Truly a manager for all seasons.
Well, his impressive record is on the floor of the studio. We've just about managed to fit it in. Not all the trophies there, 49 in total, 38 of those at Old Trafford. It's an incredible record. Dion, you spent 2 seasons under him. He, of course, signed you. How quickly, after joining Manchester United, did you realise that he was a special manager?
I think just the way he spoke to his players, you know, he wasn't the kind of player that would speak to his players to get a point over to an individual as a group. He'd pull you aside and he'd tell you to your face he didn't want to embarrass you or he didn't want to big you up. He'd tell you in your own ear, in his office, have a chat with you, then he'd get the respect of the players like that because he spoke to you like a man, you know, not like a piece in a jigsaw, like a man. And it was, I think, because he's got so much respect from older players as well, and Reedy will tell you this, all the players that have played for him, that are managers, Robbie, everybody calls him Gaffer and Boss. Even now. Yeah. And if you don't call him Gaffer Boss, I'll give you a clip around the back.
Yeah, I was with Brian Robson today, and he
does it all the time.
He still calls him the boss. Yeah. Robbie, you're the one of those who got away. Loads and loads of questions on Twitter tonight, and people asking about, you know, the Manchester United aura and how much of that is down to the manager. You played against loads of his sides. Is he integral to that aura of the club?
Well, I think like Liverpool were in the 80s. You know, I had the fortunate pleasure of playing against the United team of his era, and going to Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams, just when you're going down the tunnel to face one of his teams, you were scared. There's no question about it. And at times they'd have won the game, in that tunnel because of the players they had and because of the manager. So, fortunately, I won there a couple of times, but for me, he is the greatest manager that's ever been. A big influence on the team and also on football in general, Peter. I mean, he leaves a big hole at the top of British football. I don't really want to use this analogy, but it's a bit like if you imagine the sort of football mafia, he is the Don. I mean, does he leave a hole that nobody can fill? Well, but he brings managers. I'll tell you what he does. If you have a phone call into Sir Alex, whether you're a manager of a non-league club or you're manager of second, first, third, he'll get back to you. And some managers don't. And he gets back to you, and you ask advice, he gives it. And he's fiercely competitive, but as a fella, he's a good lad. You know, socially, after his team, he wants to win. After that, the famous bottle of red wine after the game with every manager. That is true. But you know, when you're pitching your team against them or playing against the sides, it's a different ball game. Well, earlier this week, David Moyes was 25-1 to be the next manager at Old Trafford. At the moment, he is 20-1 on, by the way. Now, if you're not a betting man or woman, that's pretty much nailed on. The latest we've heard, by the way, is that Moyes has been in London today talking to Bill Kenwright. He's expected to take training with Everton tomorrow morning, where he will then tell players about his decision to leave the club and join Manchester United. Now, in the view of the Match of the Day team, Moyes is the right man for the job.
David Moyes is the perfect choice. I think that David Moyes has done an incredible job with Everton. I think he speaks well. I think he knows the game inside out. I think the Man United fans would take to him. It's a great choice for Manchester United. Probably not a very good choice for Everton, I have to say. I think it probably makes the transition easier to get another British manager in, another Scot if you like. But he's hugely respected within the game. I think he'll instantly get the respect of the players, which is important. People say he's not won anything. All right, he's not won anything, but he's probably had 2 or 3 teams at Everton. He's managed on a relatively small budget, and I think Manchester United
see a lot of Sir Alex Ferguson in David Moyes. Yeah, you got the Scottish thing, but I think he wants to win. He's fiery. He's not bothered about any sort of headlines about himself.
He's definitely well respected for his coaching, his man management. My only thing I would say is that for a guy going into Manchester United that hasn't actually won a trophy, perhaps that would be the only gamble, I suppose.
To be honest, the best job at Manchester United is probably manager after the one after Alex Ferguson, because the expectation of following Sir Alex would be so tough.
Anybody going in there, you would say all the very best here, because, you know, I mean, they got off to a bad start. It's like, and Sir Alex is still there. You know, they'll be clamouring for Sir Alex to come back. But David, you know, he's a great manager, and I'm sure he'll do well.
Peter, Gary said a good move for Manchester United, a bad move for Everton. Would you concur? Because yes, a hole at Old Trafford, but maybe an even bigger one in terms of what Everton have with David Moyes.
Yeah, Everton haven't had the financial clout of the big clubs, and David has done fantastically well at the club. You know, he's kept them there. I think he had one season where he finished 4th from bottom, but then bounced back. And I've got to say this, I remember the season when the greatest referee, Kalina, disallowed a Duncan Ferguson goal. It still drives me mad. You have to get it in to get them into the Champions League proper. You know, it was a qualifying. And so David's done an absolutely fantastic job. The lad to mention there, he hasn't won anything. There'll be big pressure on to win something at Manchester United. Fair season up as well.
Very strong rumours about David Moyes, expected to be confirmed tomorrow, as you mentioned. Why not Mourinho? What happened to Mourinho to Old Trafford? Lots of people asking that tonight.
Well, we'll never know. I concur with the lads on the VT there. I think Moyes is the man for the job. I really do. I think he understands the club. I think he must have spoken to Sir Alex about, you know, football a lot, and Sir Alex must have mentioned things to him.
Do you think that Fergie had a hand in this
I think
appointment?
If you look at Jose's record, it's fantastic, but he flits about. Manchester United won the stability. That's the way. That's the way I see it.
Because I wanted to show you this. Now, this is managers at other big clubs around Europe, while Sir Alex Ferguson has been at Manchester United since 1986. Robbie, exactly as Peter says, this tells you that the club are all about stability, and that's maybe why they're drawn towards the third most longest-serving manager in English football, in David Moyes.
Also, as well, with David Moyes, if it's, you know, Sir Alex goes upstairs and becomes a director, you know, in Europe, it's a normal thing. You know, at Bayern Munich, Oli Hoeneß. You know, at Real Madrid, you've got Butragueño and Valdano before him. So if David Moyes was to go into United and Fergie's there above him, I think David Moyes can go upstairs to Fergie and say, you know, I'm not doing this quite right, and he'll help him. But if Mourinho was there, I don't think Mourinho would do that. I think a circus follows Mourinho, and I think nobody's bigger than Manchester United Football Club.
But can any manager operate under that significant shadow of Sir Alex Ferguson? When you walk out of the dugout, you know what it's like. There it is in front of you. There's Sir Alex Ferguson stand straight away.
Well, they're not going to take the stand down, are they?
No, of course not. No.
Hey, when you're manager of Manchester United, your manager it all comes with it. All that pressure, the richest club, or one of the richest clubs in the world. The previous man has been outstanding. You know what you're taking on when you go there, and you've got to have the confidence to go and do it.
The best players, the best managers will always ask the people of seniority for help. You know, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, it's a sign of being very, very clever.
And in terms of Everton, Martinez is the favourite to take over there. Also some talk about Phil Neville. In terms of stories as well, if you have a look at some of the morning papers, Rooney out, Ronaldo in, talk of Chelsea being interested in Rooney. Any...
Who's doing that deal?
Pardon? Who's doing the deal? You think David Moyes' first move?
I'm asking you. I've got no idea who's doing that one.
If they could keep Rooney and get Ronaldo in, that would be the perfect scenario.
OK, this is the front page of The Sun for you, the hanging up of the hairdryer. I'm not sure that's the official hairdryer, by the way. I think they might have made that one up. And we've talked about David Moyes. Quite a few of the papers have got the chosen one and things along those lines, talking about what we were mentioning about the story being confirmed tomorrow. In terms of taking the story forward, James Ducker from The Times has been in, well, we'll call them secret meetings all day, James. Put a little bit more flesh on these bones for us. How will this play out tomorrow, James?
I don't know about secret meetings, Dan, but no, I understand that that United will announce David Moyes as their new manager tomorrow. I mean, it's the worst kept secret in football, isn't it? But you know, I can sort of categorically state that he will be appointed as their next manager. It's a very interesting development. Have been fortunate enough to to interview David Gill, the United chief executive, at length today. Now, he absolutely would not be drawn on the identity of any successor, but he was obviously talking, at length about, replacing Ferguson, about the man, the manager, and also what they have looked for in a successor. And some of those things were loyalty. They want a manager who's got a commitment to sort of blooding young players. They want a guy who's been experienced in the Premier League, less so in Europe, and they want someone who buys into the sort of whole ethos of the club, and appreciates that it's not just about the football, that there's a huge commercial strategy and other things to to satisfy off the field. And clearly, if you sort of stepping back and looking at David Moyes, you would think that he would fit a lot of those criteria.
Thanks, James. I look forward to reading that one tomorrow morning, and glad you enjoyed your secret meetings today as well. We should be hearing from Peter Schmeichel in a moment, but there was a big game in the Premier League tonight. Chelsea and Spurs shared 4 goals at Stamford Bridge. Twice Chelsea were ahead through Oscar and Ramirez. Twice Spurs pegged them back though. Adebayor and Sigurdsson, the scorers for Andre Villas-Boas' side. That means, let's have a look at the table, Champions League qualification is now out of Tottenham's hands. Chelsea are 3 points clear of Spurs, who are in 5th place. Arsenal remain in 4th, of course. After the game, we caught up with the interim Chelsea manager, Rafael Benitez, talking to Jonathan Pearce about his old adversary.
A word from you tonight on an old adversary of yours who's packed it in, retired today, or announced his retirement today, I should say, Sir Alex Ferguson. What would you say about him?
I said that I like the challenge to compete when he's there, but now that he's retired, so it's just to wish him health and he can enjoy his retirement.
Thank you very much.
They've had a few run-ins, so you can perhaps understand the reason why it's short and sweet. But Sir Alex Ferguson rarely does sit-down interviews these days. The last one was back in February on Football Focus. And some of what he said then has particular resonance when you consider what we now know.
I went full-time at 22 years of age. And I prepared to stay in a game. And by doing that, I was coaching classes every summer, whether it be Lilleshall, Germany, Largs every year. I prepared to stay in a game. And what I'm saying is, I read all this nonsense about fast-tracking players because they're internationals is not doing them any favours whatsoever. You need to have a preparation, whether you've been an international or a non-league player, to be able to be successful at management.
Do you enjoy the tactical battle? Do you enjoy what everyone refers to as the mind game?
That's overrated, all that. Trust me. Yeah, so all that's overrated. When dealing with success, you have to deal with myth also, And there's a lot of myths surrounding anyone's success. Yeah, of course, there's plenty of myth, and that mind games thing definitely is overrated. It's a bit of a myth.
Do you think there's other myths as well that you do? And when you hear these myths, do you laugh about them? What's your response?
Yeah,
Does it make you angry?
There's a lot of the great one is former shipyard worker. That's a good one.
Never worked in a shipyard?
No, worked in shipyards. My dad and my brothers, my uncles all worked there, but not me. I was too intelligent.
Just wonder how your